let's discuss the idea behind psychosis and what psychosis is. And what psychosis is a waking dream state. And allow me to explain that further. When you dream or lucid dream, are you able to have conversations in your dream? If yes, then what are those conversations if not purely mental conversations which you are experiencing in your dream? Which when you wake up, you're still having mental conversations, which is a waking dream state. Now, is technically dreaming seen as a negative thing? No. Dreaming is a normal part of life. However, being in a waking dream state where you are now still engaging in conversations mentally without being asleep, that is a problem. Specifically due to the reason that you are reacting to those conversations. And so, when analyzing a dream, our dreams are a reflection of our subconscious mind, which is things that you subconsciously think about without being aware of them. And now when you look at psychosis, what is psychosis? It is the subconscious mind speaking to you, which is making aware of things that which are your greatest fears and insecurities, if you wish. And how do you combat these particular things? Well, in the Christian belief, for example, that we are all sinners. We are all sinners before we can be redempted and achieve redemption. Which, if you accept yourself as a sinner, you now see that your biggest fears, you can either choose to run away from your fears, or you can choose to face your fears and move forward. Picking up your cross, if you wish, which is the mental burden which weighs more than anybody could know. That all depends on how much you carry upon yourself. Because if you can no longer separate the two physical realities and the mental reality, you are now in an unstable state as an individual where you are actively reacting to things that are happening in your mind, not out here. And the idea of faith now is being placed as to where you choose to place your faith. Do you choose to place your faith in something that which you can hear, see, smell, taste, touch? Or do you choose to place your faith in something you can hear, but you cannot see, but you can feel in your emotional range? Which these mental stimulations are causing an irregular pattern in your emotional state. You're no longer able to achieve an equilibrium, where you now have the ability to stop the emotional frequencies from swinging you back and forth as if you're being a pawn within a game. And the game is your mind. In the Mayan mythology is a specific term called Unabku. And Unabku stands for the game. What is the game? Well, the game is life. And it is about how you choose to win in life. How you choose to level up, if you wish. Because if you choose to stay within your mind, you might feel like you're leveling up in here, but are you leveling up in the world? Because as far as we're concerned as people, when we see an individual suffering from psychosis, you're actively deteriorating in life. All these things are aspects of life. And now if we must understand what the dream state is, we have to understand death. And in order to accept death or understand death, we have to speak of it through a scientific terminology, which is, in physics, it states that, or metaphysics you could say, it is stated that unless if observed, matter does not formulate. Which, to what extent are you observing matter? If matter is a lower frequency of energy, which takes state in a physical way, this low vibration or lower frequency heightens as you enter the mind, which then heightens as you enter the spiritual. And if you begin to understand that matter is just a manifestation of energy, and that energy itself cannot be created nor destroyed, it simply shifts states. It transfers states, which from physical, you shift now state into a mental state, which is the evolution of consciousness. We as humans might be the only organism on planet Earth that began the process of shifting states. And even in our, even in our inconclusivity or complexity of our minds, we do not see that we have simply began an ascension process through consciousness. And how does the dream state relate back to this? In Viking mythology, it is said that when a person dies, they enter the dream world forever. That is what happens when you die in Viking mythology. You enter Valhalla, the dream world, a altered state of consciousness which still obeys the same laws as physical matter. However, what happens when you die in your dream? You end up back in here. We've all had dreams of ourselves falling or dying in a dream and waking up, you could say, in a compulsion, as if we had hit the ground and we woke up, as if we hit the ground in our dream, waking up in bed thinking we had just fallen. In order to understand the waking dream state, we must also understand the physical properties of the world. Which, in order to understand the physical properties of the world, you do not just approach it from a physical standpoint. We have an external experience just as much as we have an internal experience. And that is what makes we as humans human. Without the ability to separate from these two experiences, we now see the rise of what is known as psychosis, the waking dream state, where you are now actively having conversations just as if you were in a dream, purely mental. Which in a lucid dream, are you truly speaking out loud, or are you telepathically speaking in your dream? Not that I'm saying that psychosis is a telepathic conversation. We would have no way of proving that it is in its existence. But in order to understand the mind, we cannot approach it through a scientific manner, because science is the idea of proving that matter exists, because we can perceive it through our five senses. And matter, or science, is the ability to dissect that which our five senses can perceive. But now we enter a sixth sense, the mental, which in itself is its own, once again, subdivision of the physical world. However, it takes place in a mental state. And in these subdivisions, once again, you enter five senses. But now the sixth sense becomes vision into the mental, or vision into the spirit realm, where you now begin to see that which you hear. This is known as a hallucination. But what is hallucination? Hallucination derives from the Latin word or Latin term hallucinati, which when you look and analyze the word hallucinati, in Latin, hallucinati means wandering mind, as if your mind is going somewhere, not wondering, as in pondering, wondering, as in wandering, wandering, as if traveling, you could say. That is what a hallucination is. Hallucinations are very much real, which anybody who has understood the concepts of shamanism will understand that these visions are not purely false hallucinations, because there's such a thing as shared trips, where even in the realm of spirit, which is what we perceive as visual hallucinations, you now begin to see that in visual hallucinations, if you and a person or group of people all together induce the same substance, you enter a shared trip, where you are all actively engaging in the same realm together, which is the realm of spirit. The other side of the waking dream, which is where you find the spirit. And in the spirit realm, you begin to see that we are, once again, subdivisions of archetypes. Archetypes are which drive a hierarchy of things, which in our own archetypal human form, we have a hierarchy, a pyramid-like structure that which we obey, which what is known as civilization. We have the leader at the top, and then everything else is a subdivision which creates our order. And in the order of civilization, we have an alpha, betas, and anything beneath. Just as in the mind, we also have the same order. An alpha, betas, and anything in between. And once you enter the realm of spirit, once again you enter the same order. There is an alpha, betas, and anything in between. And in order to understand these things, we must now realize that everything is simply just an ascending state of consciousness, an ascending state of energy, which through the low resonance of physics or matter, known as physical space, through the low resonance of energy which takes form in physical matter, we begin to arise as humans to mental, to spirit. And that is all according to the substances that which you're using. We as humans are not the only beings or organisms in nature which induce substances. We see it in foxes, we see it in reindeer, we see it in bears, and these animals often correlate to very spiritual visions or beings, which if you see some of these beings in your dream, you are actively seeing manifestations of symbols, which these symbols have meaning to them. I invite you to look and find what your own meanings are. I cannot explain every single meaning. However, in the meaning of being human, there is a pyramid or a triangle, which is known as health. And in health, we have to realize that there is spirit, mental, body. And in this pyramid, if you're lacking in one aspect of your health, you begin to lack in the other two. And when you lack in two aspects, you might as well destroy the whole triangle, essentially. Welcome to Psychosis. And the idea that if you're not taking care of your physical health, you're also unable to take care of your mental health. And if you're unable to take care of your mental health, you are unable to take care of your spiritual health. And in order to engage in all of these aspects, you need to start practicing disciplines which allow you to become grounded in those experiences, to descend from the experiences, which we as Western civilization are nothing but abusers of substances. How do we treat psychosis? You took a lot of drugs, you entered psychosis, so now we're going to give you more drugs in order to control the psychosis. And the psychosis is meant to not take away what you're hearing. It's simply meant to lower the rate of volume at which you're listening. Which that's all medication does. It does not take away the experience of psychosis. Psychosis is permanent. It never stops. The only thing you can change is the volume, which if medication is meant to lower the volume, what does inducing a substance do? It heightens the volume of the mind. Because as physics explains, which physics understands the resonance of energy, and what is resonance? It is volume, the frequency at which a volume is being processed. What does the volume relate to? Your vocal frequency. If I speak vocally, physically, I engage the hearts of people. If I speak vocally, mentally, I engage the minds of people. And when you unite both, you enter the realm of spirit, opening the gateway, if you wish. But in order to understand this gateway, you must understand the physical world and the dream world, which what is death? The doorway. All that death is simply transferring states from physical life to dream world. And when you die in the dream world, you re-enter physical life. And in this ascending pattern, you now begin to see that just as planets travel around a sun, which a sun travels around a galaxy, or a solar system travels through a galaxy, which a galaxy itself travels through space. And now we begin to see that it's not just a pendulum swing, but a constant swaying of a rocking boat, which as you travel through space, there is a finite point which you're being pulled by, known as a gravity field. This allows you to travel through space. But in order to have this focus point, you need to have an alpha. The invitation to begin understanding what God is. It is the moral compass. It is the North Star, if you wish. That which gives life or direction. If you physically travel on sea, you must understand the stars because they act as your compass physically. But what is your compass mentally? If you have zero mental compass or moral compass, where does your life end? Quite terribly. Whereas if you take on a higher moral compass, where you now see things from a higher perspective, you're now actively engaging in a better direction in life on this great gravitational field, which we as humans walk on. This is what allows matter to condense and stabilize on a gravitational plane. This allows us to specifically exist physically. And once again, there is a gravitational field in the mind, which you feel when you have an impulse in your mind that causes your frequency to sink through your chest, which in order to re-elevate it, you need to gain a stronger spirit. And what is the idea of religion? Religion is only an explanation of the spiritual. It is meant to act as a moral compass or a foundation that which you can uphold your spirit from. If you read religion from a physical perspective, you are reading it wrong. Because religion is the explanation of spirit, the archetypes of spirit, which take form in the archetypes of physical body. And the gateway is the mind. What separates physical matter and spirit? The mind. Because it is the gateway to the next and the next. And the moment you're a psychotic individual, you've already left physical space. You've entered into a dimension which you are now seeking to continue entering. Psychosis is essentially addiction. An addiction which you are actively treating yourself by inducing substances. You can induce substances that heighten this frequency or substances that lower this frequency. But if you're willing to take substances that continuously heighten the frequency, why is it seen or frowned upon to take substances that lower the frequency or volume of this particular dimension? What are you willing to sacrifice for your own well-being? Because if you do not take care of your well-being, you've entered the dream. Thank you.